Chandler from the Virginia School of Traditional Arts. Today we've got a little painting project. I have built this little small organizer, bookshelf, whatever you want to call it, to go underneath my printer in my office. It's made out of scrap wood, nothing really nice. It has a few old shelving boards that were already painted and a little bit of T111, which is exterior siding. If you're not familiar with that, it kind of makes it look like barn boards. I have put a base coat of brown paint on this, and today we're going to show you how I would do faux wood grain painting. Okay, I used to use this a lot when I worked in the theater, and this is not really a traditional art. I guess it could be considered that because sometimes in the past people would faux paint marble and wood and all kind of different things in their homes if they couldn't afford that or didn't want to put the money into that particular thing. So even some of the really fancy houses back in the day would have faux painted things to give the appearance of marble or wood, and both of them work basically the same. The wood grain, you basically would do straight lines. If you're going to do marble, you do more swirly lines, and you could use lots of different colors. What you're going to need today is an old paintbrush. We done trimmed this one up with scissors and cut out like more than half of its bristles, and then kind of chopped up the ends. What we're looking for is a very random pattern, and this, to be honest, is probably still too many bristles. I'm probably going to cut a few more out of this before we start. You want this to be very dry painting. You're not trying to cover anything. You're trying to put streaks in it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to show you what else you're going to need. I like this little gizmo. This is nothing but a little box that I buy berries in at the local grocery store. It doesn't have any holes in the bottom. I've never really seen them anywhere else, but we got some of these a couple of months back, and I saved them. And we're going to be using 3 colors of paint. We're going to have our original color, which is our leather brown, and then we're going to put black and white, and we're going to mix a darker brown and a lighter brown using the same color brown. And so that's the other things that you need is you need your paint. Today I'm using Rust-Oleum oil-based paint. That's because that's what I have. It's no particular reason I'm using that. You could use latex, does the same thing. The oil-based doesn't mix very well as far as changing the colors, but we used to do this with the latex all the time in the theater that I worked in. So we'll shake these up a little bit. I've got 3 colors, black, white, and the brown. And we're going to dip out a few of those and we'll bring it back. So we've got our paint here. Just put it in the 3 compartments. I've got the brown in the middle, white and black. I didn't put very much black in there because my experience is it doesn't take much black to make a dark color. And so now we're gonna put it on this side here. We want our brush strokes to go this way on the side, this way on the top. If there's grain on the wood already, which this is real wood, it already is going this way with their grain, so it will match our texture as well. We've painted the brown on here in this direction too. That also leaves us some brush strokes which will mimic the grain of the wood. And we've tried not to leave many runs or anything like that. We do have a few little runs, but I think we can mask those. If you've got great big runs, now's the time to sand them off and get rid of those. This is not a fine piece of furniture. I'm just trying to camouflage this a little bit so it doesn't look quite so junky, because it is in my office where I do a lot of my work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take me some brown. Get over here where y'all can see it. Put some brown. And I'm just going to put some brown up here on the top. And I'm going to dip into the white. And I'm going to work on me a color that's lighter than the brown I have, but not crazy much lighter than the brown I have. And I can test my brush and see how dry it is. And I want to dry brush this. I don't want this to be a solid color. And you can start with the dark and put the light over it. It doesn't really matter. But whatever way you do it is fine. And you can always come back if it looks too light or too much of something, too dark. You can also come back. But that's the first step right there. I'm going to go ahead and do that on all the rest of the item here. As it dries, it should lighten a little bit. And we're just trying to get it to even out a little bit here by doing this. I did part of the top. I'm going to do these. This is the T111 boards, and it's the grain on it, and it's supposed to look like it's a board going this way, so we're going to change and go up and down. I've got my project up on a little board here, so I'm not touching the dirty table with my brush. We're just going to do the exact same thing. We're going to get us a little brown, we're going to get us a little white. We're going to mix those two together and see if our color looks like what we want. And then we're going to try to get some of that paint off. And we're just going to very lightly streak this very lightly up and down. Try to start all the way at the top. Try not to hit the dirty table like I just said. And it's okay if it's some highlights, some lights, and some darks in it. And we're going to come back and we're going to put some in the little grooves so they don't look quite so austere. So stand out this here. But I don't have very much paint on this brush, as you can tell, and I'm just barely touching it, trying to get it to where it goes all the way to the bottom though, because that's where you'll show, and all the way to the top. And just kind of giving it some highlights, not trying to cover anything. And now we'll take and dip back down in our brown, and we'll get it a little darker, and we'll put some streaks in here on these grooves. We want the grooves still to be darker, but to be a light color, lighter than the base color. And we can come back here across this edge. We want this edge to go long ways and this edge to come off and go across the edge. We're just going to spin this thing on around. Do another side here. It's a little bit more white. Yeah, that's probably a little bit too much white, so we'll put a little more brown in it. Come back across some of that. And we want it to come all the way off the end here. Blend it in a little bit, but we just want a little hint of green there. And from this side I can do this top now easy. So we'll do that. Go back across full length strokes. Try to do full length strokes. I don't always do that. That works best. And then on the ends here, make sure you get those coming across. That's the way that would look on a real board. And across this edge, of course. All right. And I'll spin it around and do the front. Now the front of this has got little edges and I didn't paint them all the way in. We're just going to touch those a little bit. You can control this a little bit. It's not very controllable on teeny parts, but the idea is just don't put much paint on it and it'll just streak it up. That's the idea. The idea is just a little streaky parts here. White in it, so to show. And then this, we would expect it to go up and down, even though it doesn't. It's what we would expect it to do. So, we got a little bit going on there. Alright, so the next step is we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to do it with the black. So we'll start on the side we started on before. And all we're going to do, we're going to use the same part up here. We're just going to take us a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, put it right back in there, and that's going to give us a little bit darker brown than what we have here. We're going to work off some of that, and so we can just barely come across here. Just putting in a few little, might need to make it a little darker. Just barely come across. Anything that you don't like is too light, you can hit this with this and it will lighten it up, or darken it up rather. So we're just gonna give it a couple more little strokes there with the dark color, and that's about it. We're just, alright, just did the top a little bit. Going back on this vertical, we're just going to show you that we're doing the same stroke. Just putting the black up in this brown that we already got. And the same vertical stroke on it. Just a little bit. Trick with this is to know which way your grain should be growing. If you paint this sideways, it will look very funny. So that's the only trick. You want to know which way your grain should be going on your item you're painting. Otherwise it doesn't look right. So this does not take long whatsoever, just to put a couple of, and it's best if you go ahead and do this while the other is still a little bit damp. It will blend it a little bit, the first layer. Now the base coat was all the way dry. Now you can do it with the base coat damp too, but then that starts getting you into some, you know, you're not leaving that true color in it, so you lose kind of your original color. So we're just going to go across the end here a little bit, get that, and do this top here. And it's okay if you don't go straight. No boards pretty much have exactly straight grain that's been sawed in a modern piece of furniture anyway. Some of the old ones had some pretty straight grain because they were split, but modern furniture does not have straight grain. And you might need to go back and touch that white once in a while, because I'm losing right much of my white on this side. That's what we're getting at. And all we got left is the front. Put a few little streakies on us. Do this side. And that's about it. Now I'm gonna let this dry for a few hours. I'll build me a fireman wood stove out here, let it dry so we can see what it looks like. I'll bring you back and take a look at it dry. Now I am using gloss paint, so it's going to look shiny. If you wanted a not gloss look, you could use flat paint or satin paint, or at the very end we can go back across with some real fine sandpaper and we knock the shine off of it some, so it looks old even. But shiny's okay with what I'm doing, so we're gonna probably leave it like that. Alright, we're gonna clean up our brush, and we're gonna do that fairly quickly. We intend to reuse our little plastic container. We want to clean that as well. I don't think I'm gonna worry about that. I got plenty of those. So we're gonna put us a little paint thinner in here. I'm gonna put a little bit on a rag. I've got pretty much paint on my hands. Take care of that. We do want to do this in a well-ventilated area. And my little brush is just a disposable brush, but I only have the one, so I'm going to clean it in case I need to do some touch-up later. I can always come back to it. Probably should be wearing safety glasses for this as well. But it doesn't take much. Clean out your brush. Wipe off the bristles. And you want to do that a couple times just to make sure you're getting the paint out of it. Oil-based paint dries very slowly. It's got to be, well, even latex has to be a certain temperature I'm gonna build a fire in my little wood stove over here and let this dry for a couple of days probably. I'm not gonna run a fire all that time, but I'll run a fire part of that time and get this good and dry. I don't have much paint on it. It took it about 3 days to dry with the base coat, mainly because it's cold. In the summertime, I can cut a fan on. We can dry that paint to where you can touch it and not feel sticky in about 8 hours. But in the wintertime, doesn't work as good. So it's got to be warm to do that. So we're gonna put our paint thinner back up. We want to store this somewhere where our fire is not going to get to it, and you don't want to dump that down your drain. That's bad for your septic, and it's bad for you if you have city water. You don't want to do that either. You want to dispose of that some other way. I save it up and I use it outside when I'm burning brush and that kind of thing. I can start a fire with it, and we burn it up that way. But you don't want to put this in your wood stove for certain, because it will explode. It's like gasoline in that way. Alright, back with our little bookshelf project with our faux wood grain. I had a few defects in this wood anyway. That's why we didn't sand it up and make it nice. And it was scrap wood. It had already been used once before, at least once before. And so I'm just going to set it up here where you can see it. What the top looks like. That's the biggest part of it. But that looks the idea of wood grain. I mean, and it's dry now. The idea with it is you don't want uniformity. So you want to mix a little color each time, and it's okay if it's a different color here slightly than over here. That's perfectly normal in wood. It doesn't stay completely uniform. It's okay that it's a little more somewhere and a little less somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. So this, I'm just going to show y'all what this turned out like, and I'm tickled with this. I've been thinking about doing this for about 3 or 4 years now. When I got my printer, I'm excited to use this for my printer. I sized this so it will fit 8 reams of normal paper if you set them long ways this direction. My dimension on the top here is about 26 inches. Inside here is about 24, and depth is about 18. And so we can set 8 reams of paper on each shelf. So this will hold 16 reams of normal size paper. I don't have that much paper normally, but I do have lots of different papers. So that's my intent with this, was I was going to have some for my cardstock in different color paper and than your normal paper. And I have a special paper I use to make all my brochures and stuff out of. It's a little thicker, but not cardstock, so you can't see through it. But this has turned out very nicely. Made out of scrap, cost me absolutely nothing. The paint we used was free too. It was left over from another project. And you can make this as very nice or rough and ready as this one is. It's all up to you. I use gloss paint. You don't have to. You can use semi-gloss. You can use satin, or a combination of the two. If you don't want it to be shiny and you have gloss paint, all you have to do is take some 400 grit or 600 grit sandpaper, just very, very lightly run over this and then knock that sheen off of it. Sand with the green that you painted, and that it will blend right in, and it just knocks the sheen off. I'm going to leave it shiny for the moment at least and see what it looks like where I'm going to put it. If I don't like the shiny, I'll take it back out here and sand it off. But not a hard project to do, just nail gun together, no glue, nothing fancy. I did run a little board here over top of the edge of the T111 to keep it from showing the edge of the plywood. I don't like that, but other than that, nothing fancy here at all. Got some little pieces in here that actually hold this shelf up. It's not only nailed through on the side, it's got this little brace under both sides, and that way it will keep the weight of the paper from mashing this 5/8 of an inch plywood basically down. Particularly with these grooves in it, it's weaker than it would normally be. But that's what I had to use. And if you've liked this project and like the channel. Please give us a thumbs up. Give us any comments that you like. If you have a better or different way of doing this wood grain, I know there's other little pattern kind of rollers that they use, or pattern sponges and different things. Faux painting is very fun, very easy to do. It can take an average project or below average project and turn it into something really nice if you put some time into it. You can make it look like marble, you can make it look like stone, you can make it look like wood. Whatever type of wood you would like to, the color that you pick is what kind of wood you end up with. It could be light, dark, red, even kind of black, looking like ebony. But you do need three tones of the same paint pretty much. And that's why we just added a little white and a little black to the same base coat that we put on here. But very easy. Hope you all try this. See you next time. Thank you.